started with a car crash. It was a sweltering July morning in 2017 when the front gate of a luxury villa in Bangkok was shattered. But this was no accident. The woman behind the wheel wasn't a bad driver, she was an undercover cop. And the millionaire living behind the gate? A man known online as Alpha-02, a multimillionaire, cybercrime kingpin, and he was about to make the dumbest mistake of his life. This is the story of how the FBI, DEA, and half a dozen global agencies chased a faceless kingpin through the deepest shadows of the internet, only to find out he was right under their noses the entire time. This is the true story of the fall of the dark web king. Picture the early 2010s. Facebook was still cool, Bitcoin was weird monopoly money, and the dark web was that spooky corner of the internet your techie cousin warned you about at Thanksgiving. But to criminals, it was a gold rush. Thanks to encryption and crypto, anyone could set up shop online, and instead of selling Beanie Babies on eBay, they were selling meth, malware, and missile schematics. You know, the usual. It all started with Silk Road, the OG darknet marketplace. Think Amazon, but instead of 2-day shipping, you got 10 years in federal prison. When it was shut down in 2013, authorities thought, great, we got the big fish. Little did they know, that was just the beginning, because when you chop off the head of one dark web marketplace, 3 more grow back Hydra style. In 2014, someone calling himself Alpha-02 quietly launched AlphaBay. At first, it looked like just another sketchy forum, but within months it exploded. It had everything: a sleek interface, thousands of listings, and a vibe that screamed evil Amazon Prime. If you wanted stolen credit cards, it was easy access. Drugs, of course. Ransomware kits, hacking tools, untraceable weapons. It was like a Black Friday sale with no morals. And Alpha-02? He was getting a cut of every transaction, just 2 to 4%. But when you're processing over $500,000 in sales per day, that stacks up really fast. By 2017, AlphaBay had over 400,000 users and was processing deals in Bitcoin, Monero, and Ethereum. They even had a built-in crypto tumbler, basically a washing machine for dirty money, clean bills, dirty hands. But when your empire is built on crime, paranoia becomes a business model, and Alpha-02, he had plenty of both. So who is Alpha-02? Behind the screen, Alpha-02 was Alexandre Cazes, a Canadian born in 1991 who went from teenage hacker to full-blown cyber kingpin by his late 20s. Gifted, ambitious, and unusually disciplined for someone running an online criminal empire, Cazes was a tech prodigy who once worked in legitimate IT roles, even contracting with governments overseas. But somewhere along the way, he chose a darker path, not just skimming the surface of cybercrime, but building a sprawling marketplace that rivaled anything the dark web had seen before. Cazes wasn't hiding in a basement. He was behind the wheel of Lamborghinis, living in luxury villas across Thailand, snapping selfies in designer clothes, and investing heavily in his own digital anonymity. He had layers of encryption, offshore shell companies, and careful protocols in place. Everything was sleek, smooth, and seemingly untouchable. He even avoided selling certain items, like Russian bank info or anything related to child abuse, possibly to throw off investigators, or maybe just to avoid becoming a target himself. Either way, the message was clear. This is organized crime, but make it curated. Eventually, Alpha-02 passed the torch to his second-in-command, D-Snake, and rebranded himself as just admin. He was trying to vanish into the digital ether, but FBI agents were quietly watching every keystroke, every crypto trail, every breadcrumb he didn't even realize he left. And then came the email, the digital equivalent of a smoking gun wrapped in a confession note. It was December 2016. DEA agent Robert Miller is having another routine day in Fresno, California, until an anonymous tip shows up in his inbox. Inside, details that connect Alpha-02's real identity to a Hotmail address he once used in a tech forum. Yes, Hotmail, the same email your mom still uses for grocery coupons. From there, it was a domino effect. That email linked to a personal website, the site linked to Alexandre Cazes. And guess what was on the domain registry? His real name, his real birthday, his real home address. Turns out the king of the dark web forgot the oldest rule of the internet: never use your criminal alias next to your baby photos. Now that authorities had his name, it was time for the takedown, the raid. The FBI worked with authorities across 7 countries, from Canada to Cyprus, all forming the digital version of Ocean's 11, with government funding and way less style. They tracked Cazes to a luxury villa in Bangkok. And on July 5th, 2017, they made their move. But they didn't bust in guns blazing. Instead, they staged a fake car crash outside his gate, like some bizarre reality show prank. Except this one ends with federal charges. Cases ran out barefoot, where authorities were able to take him into custody. Inside his house was his laptop. He was still logged in, and on the screen was AlphaBay's admin page. Passwords, wallets, logs, it was the jackpot. AlphaBay went dark within days, and the so-called untouchable king of the dark web, he died by suicide a week later in a Thai prison. But the story doesn't end with cases, because power vacuums are irresistible, and where there's money, there's always another dark web dealer ready to pick up the crown. There's always another alias, another platform, another digital empire waiting to rise. If you want to stay ahead of the game, or just love a good true crime rabbit hole, subscribe and stay tuned because we're just scratching the surface.